Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I want to show you real quick how to deploy an nginx container, how to give it a name, run it in detached mode, assign the port number needed in order to access it, and then I want to show you how to do the same thing using Ansible. Given that this channel is big in automation, I always like to show how to run certain tasks using Ansible as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we want to do is just run plain Docker container commands to, deploy or start an image, a container, just like you would, any day. So it'd be Docker container run. We want to give it a name. So let's say my nginx, and then we want to associate the port numbers for the container. So 8080 will be the port that's going to open up in the container itself, and it's going to pass through port 80 on the host. And then we want to run in detach mode, and we want to pull the nginx image. So it's pulling it, so then we can do docker container ls. We can see that it's there, and there it is. So it's already running. So just to confirm that again, let me maximize that a little bit. So let me go ahead and stop that container. So we can do docker container stop my nginx. And that's why I also like to give it a name, because it's easier to remember instead of using the ID number. So if I stop the container, then if we go back to the browser and refresh the page, we'll see that it's no longer running. So that way we can confirm that worked. We can start it again. So start my nginx, and we'll see that if we refresh, it's up and running again. So that is a very simple way of deploying a container using Docker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop it, my nginx, and then I'm going to remove it as well. So container rm my nginx, and we'll see that there's nothing in there anymore. Docker container ls, there's nothing running. Then we'll do ls-a. So these are older ones that I've done, but we don't see under names, there's nothing that says my nginx. So we know that's good. So that would be the way of deploying a Docker container, a very simple way of deploying a Docker container, obviously using Docker command. So let's do the same thing using Ansible. So where am I? Okay. Playbook. So I'm going to create a YAML file under playbooks, and I'm just going to name it nginx container .yaml. So we'll start creating the YAML file. Obviously we want to give it a name. We can name it deploy nginx container. Deploy nginx container. Host, this will be the target host where you want this playbook to run on. And I want to do it on this local host. Obviously you can use any name within your inventory file. So I already have Docker to not require root access, so we can set become to false, so that way we don't have to sudo up in order to run these tasks. So this is the part where we start actually creating the task to pull and then to deploy the container. So we can name this one pull the nginx image, and we'll use the community docker image module, right? And then this would be the options or attributes, if you want to call it, within that module. So the name we're going to call is nginx, and by just using nginx, we're basically telling it to pull the latest version of nginx. And source, we want to use pull. So that's a very simple way of pulling the latest version of nginx to your target host. In this case, we're using, our target host is a local host. So now this is where we actually deploy or run the container. So we'll give it a name again. Deploy. The name section is it's whatever you want to do with it, whatever you want to put in there. So deploy nginx container. Again, we're going to use the community, Docker, I believe this will be container, the container module. And now we use the attribute, so we'll reuse my nginx. So if you remember on the previous part, I was using my nginx for the name of the container itself. So this is what relates to it. It's basically the same thing. Image. So this is where we tell it, okay, this is the image that I want to run. nginx. So this will pull this image right here. So we're using the nginx image. Now we need to open up the ports. So we need to tell it which ports to use. Again, we can use 8080 over port 80. And we want to start the container. I'm sorry, so it will be state started. I think that's it. That's pretty much all we need. So however, so this port section right here, I know if you want to deploy it multiple times within the same host, you're going to have an error message saying, hey, port 88 is already being utilized. You can set, you can create a variable over here and say, let's call it container ports, right? And then you can just give it a value. So right now we'll do 8080, but then we'll come back over here and we can change these to, so we can call that variable container ports and get rid of that. And actually this will be like this, right? So that way, so every time you want to rerun this, you only have to update this section right here with a new port number. So we can do 8081, and then run the playbook, 8082, run the playbook, and so on. Or you can actually call the variable from the actual command line. There's multiple ways of doing it. That was just one way of showing you how to do that. So we'll get rid of this right here, and we'll go back to the way I was doing it, just for simplicity. And 8080 over port 80, right? Write the file. I think that's all we need. So name, host, localhost, become false task. The first task is to pull the image. The second task is to deploy the container. We'll give it a name. We'll call, using the image of nginx, assigning a port number of 8080, and state started. Okay, so that should do it. So if we run this playbook, Ansible playbook, playbooks, nginx, and hopefully there won't be any error messages. So it's running. Okay, it's gathering facts. Okay, so he gave me an error message. What's the problem here? Deploy nginx container, change false, unsupported parameters. So I might have a typo. Let me double check. What did I do? Docker, community, docker underscore image, name, source, container name, image, port, state, started, source. I'm not seeing it. Localhost, host, localhost. And what was that error message again? Unsupported parameters, community, docker underscore container. This API version. So it's complaining about. Hold on. So I have name, image. There we go. Ports. One single character. Alright, so let's run this again. And that's a good learning experience, you know. Always double check your work. And actually, I could have done this. I could have done syntax check. And now it says, okay, it runs. There's no issues with it. So let's get rid of that. And let's rerun the playbook. Deploy nginx container. Okay, so now there's no error messages. There's one change that took place. And let's go back to the web browser, and you see that it's already running. So again, if we run docker container ls, you see that it's running again. So let's stop that container one more time. Docker container stop my nginx. We'll open up the web browser again, and you'll see that it's no longer running. All right, well, there you go. Hope you liked this video. I hope it's useful and you learned something. Don't forget to leave a like, add a comment, and subscribe. Thank you very much. Have a good one.